Hello everyone! Do you want to know if a servant is worth rolling for with your hard-earned quartz? Then you are in the right place. Let me give you the information necessary for it. Welcome to the FGO Gacha Guide. Today's topic servant is the next one to be released, the Goddess of Love, Kama. We will be covering all points you see on screen, but before we go into these, fun fact with Kama. Kama is not only a pseudo-servant, summoned in the body of Mato Sakura, but specifically in Dark Sakura, the evil version of Sakura, so I'm sure you know what to expect with that. Moving on to my personal opinion. In my opinion, Kama is amazingly strong. She is, in my opinion, the hands-down strongest assassin in the game. Her damage is high, her skills are good, her MP is strong, and she is the only servant in the game who has advantage against alter egos. Kama is one of the overall strongest servants out there in FGO, and I highly suggest rolling for her, especially if you are in need of a good assassin. Now let's get into why. Let's start with her stats. Kama is a 5-star assassin class servant, meaning she is super effective against riders and weak to casters. She has 11,528 attack at level 90. This is pretty average for a 5-star servant. However, as an assassin class servant, reminder that her damage has a 0.9 times multiplier on it, effectively making that attack only 10,375. Her HP at 90 is 12,889, a little bit below average for a 5-star health value, but it's not that big a deal. We'll learn why in a little bit. Her hidden stats show that her MP gain per hit is 0.74%, nicely above average. As for her cards, her quick cards has 4 hit, her arts cards have 3 hits, and her buster cards have 4 hits, while her extra card has 5 hits. Overall, pretty average hit counts, with her star weight being at 100, also average. And overall, seems kind of average at first until we start hitting stuff like star generation, which is at 25%, very high, exactly what you would expect from assassin class servant. Overall, her stats start coming out to being a bit over the average mark, mainly due to her MP on hit and star generation being so high. Now let's look at her deck and MP. Her deck contains 1 arts card, 2 quick cards, and 2 buster cards, a non-standard 2-1-2 deck, taking an extra quick card over an arts card. Her noble Phantasm, Kama Sammohana, experiencing a waning love and embracing affection, that is chastity. Or alternatively, as this MP has 2 names, Samsara Kama, to incinerate affection in the name of love. Both of them do the exact same thing despite the different names. This is a single target quick MP with 10 hits, quite high. This MP will deal damage to 1 enemy, has an 80% chance to charm that enemy for 1 turn, and increases her own quick performance for 3 turns by 20 to 40% based on her overcharge. And this buff applies before her damage hits. This is a great NP. It has a high hit count, which helps produce large star generation and has an extra help with her MP generation. It has a good disable with a very high chance to activate attached to it, a good 3-turn buff that applies before damage, and honestly, the only real drawback to this MP is the fact that the charm isn't a guarantee effect. She does have a skill that does help out by reducing enemy charm resistance to help push it past that 100% point and make it much more possible to affect pretty much any servant or enemy you face that's not immune to it. Moving on to her passives, first off we have Magic Resistance A, increasing her debuff resistance by 20%, Riding A, which increases her quick performance by 10%, Independent Manifestation C, kind of a unique upgrade to independent action. This increases her critical damage by 6%, increases her mental debuff resistance by 6%, mental debuffs being Sleep, Bewitchment, Charm Resist Down. This is Confusion, which is Skill Seal after a couple turns, and Terror, which is Stun after a couple turns. And finally, Essence of the God of Love B, which increases her damage by 225 and gives her complete Charm debuff immunity. These are fantastic passives overall, giving us exactly what we want, a quick performance up as a passive to help her MP and her main stats perform even better, a nice critical damage passive up to help her deal more damage with all those stars she produces, and even a nice immunity to a relatively powerful debuff. Very good. Her skills, starting off, we have Blessing of the Goddess. This overcharges an ally's NP by 1 stage. It'll happen 1 time and lasts for 3 turns, along with recovering that ally's HP by 2,000 to 4,000, or recovering her own HP by 2,000 to 4,000. And finally has a demerit attached to it where whatever ally is targeted with this loses 1,000 HP permanently for that battle. This is overall a very strong skill when used on the right servant. Just used on Kama herself, it increases her quick buff from her MP from 20 to 25%. Let's take a look at that one more time. The base goes from 20 to 25% for that one use. Now, the HP debuff itself is not that bad. It may sound bad on paper, losing 1,000 HP permanently, but this is a debuff that can be cleansed, so you can get rid of it, get back to your max HP if you're using certain servants like, say, Joan d'Arc with her MP. So it's not that bad overall. Moving on, we have our second skill, Ananga Ranga. This gives Kama a Guts status, which will trigger itself 1 time and has no time limit on it. It will last until it triggers. It also gives Kama a 3-turn buff for 20 to 30% attack. A fantastic skill for challenge fights, as it grants a Gust that stays until it pops, guaranteeing Kama has an extra life for the fight, on top of also giving a nice damage boost, and it's not on a terribly long cooldown at 6 turns. An effective 50% uptime. Finally, we have her third skill, Mara Papayas. This charges Kama's MP gauge by 30 to 50%. Don't grab the background there, grab the Abbey. 30 to 50%. Grants Kama an attack and defense advantage against alter egos for 3 turns. Increases her critical damage by 20% for 3 turns, and finally reduces all enemies' charm debuff resistance by 20 to 40% for the 1 turn that it is activated. Holy crap, talking about an amazing skill! This skill is so damn good it does more than some other servants' entire kits do. What is it with Sakura faces and having overloaded skills, thinking about BB Summer? Anyway, this skill makes Kama the only servant in the entire game have any sort of advantage against alter egos aside from a slight resistance advantage that the Knight classes has. This is a full-on advantage. She is the only servant with it, and 2 years into the future in Japanese Fate Go, she is still the only servant with an advantage against alter egos. That alone would already make this a pretty decent skill to give her that class advantage and that extra reach, but with all the extra bells and whistles piled onto it, a 50% self-charge, a critical damage up, a charm debuff resist down to all enemies, it makes this skill way too good. An absolutely fantastic skill. With all of these skills put together in her MP, you can see Kama is built to deal high damage, create a lot of stars, and follow up with hard crit turns, while charming enemies to lock them down and prevent them from attacking. With double Scotty set up, her damage, crit star generation, and good MP gen on hit can help her loop her MPs and quickly deal any strong crit damage, especially if you have a Summer BB swap in to lock her cards. To help out, she can also easily charm enemies if an enemy isn't immune, lock them down with back-to-back MPs, and turn certain challenge fights into absolute jokes. Kama is an extremely strong servant with all of her strengths put together. So what materials do we need to level up these skills, since they are very good? Well, Kama's material costs are both expensive and non-expensive at the same time, and what I mean by that is all of her skills use nothing but high-rarity materials, but in small quantities. Each skill requires 6 Divine Wines, 9 Bloodstone Tears, 11 Hearts of a Foreign God, and 15 Lamps of Demon Sealing. To max out, that would be 18 Wines, 27 Bloodstone Tears, 33 Hearts, and 45 Lamps. Overall, the numbers are low, but the rarity of the materials is high. Events will help make you cover these costs very easily, especially if you've been playing the game for a longer time, but newer players will have difficulty filling this up just because of the rarity of finding the materials in drops when trying to hunt for them in quests. So how does Kama stack up against her competition? As a 5-star single-target assassin, her main competition boils down to Jack the Ripper, Mysterious Heroine X, King Hassan, and Old Man Li Shuwen. Jack has overall better base stats, but much worse skills. MHX is better against Artoria faces and sabers in general, but otherwise Kama beats her out. Hassan is a bit tankier, but Kama overall does more damage and has better lockdown. And Old Man Li can loop a little bit easier, but he's a one-turn wonder and doesn't really have multi-turn staying power. While the main competition for her each has some aspect that are better than her, Kama as a whole package outdoes each one of them. Honestly, her number one competition when not facing an Artoria face is Jack, due to just how incredibly strong Jack's base skills are. She has incredibly high star generation, incredibly high MP gain, and very high damage versus females. However, Jack loses out to Kama mainly because 2 out of 3 of her skills are very often worthless, especially in challenge fights where enemies are immune to having their buffs removed and do too much damage for a small heal to really outpace. Meanwhile, every single skill Kama has is useful, whether in a challenge fight or otherwise. She doesn't need to face a female enemy to gain her damage increase for her MP, and that really helps put Kama on top over her main competition. Again, if you're facing an Artoria face, Mysterious Heroine X will outdo her, but that's because she's specifically built for that kind of thing. Outside of that, Kama is by far easily the better assassin than any of her competition. Now, if you roll for Kama, you want to know what skills you should prioritize in leveling, well, let me get you there. I would suggest leveling her 3rd skill first because it is a bonkers good skill. It has everything you could ever want. It has a self-MP charge of up to 50%, a class advantage gain against a class that's usually good against an assassin, a critical damage up, a charm debuff resistance on enemies so that your MP can kind of guarantee that lockdown. It's all fantastic stuff, and you want to level that up as hard as possible. Always level 10 this skill. Next, her 2nd skill. This is also a fantastic skill, especially for challenge fights. A Guts that doesn't go away until it procs, a good attack up on a relatively low cooldown when you level it up all the way. Great skill to level up. And finally, her 1st skill. While this is a fine skill and it has a nice heal attached to it, that's the only thing that scales. The main strength of this is the overcharge to an NP state. That way you can make certain MPs much stronger than their base level. For example, something like Merlin, he will start generating more stars and make it easier for you to get those crit cards. Or, in the future, something like Caster Artoria, which will give you more hits of unremovable invincibility. That kind of thing is what you're looking for with this more than anything else that it provides. So you can leave this at a relatively low level and still get a very, very good amount of mileage out of it. At the end of the day, Kama is one of the best servants in the game, one of the best challenge fight servants in the game, and is by far one of the servants I highly recommend leveling all 3 of her skills up to 10. So at the end of the day, I would level all of these to 10, but start off with the 3rd skill as it is easily the best one. Now, let's go over craft essences to equip Kama and make her as effective as possible. She is a single target quick MP user focused on damage and crits. One Summer is my personal favorite NP, or CE, to give her, as it helps out by giving her a 50% starting MP charge, 10% quick performance increase, and 10% MP damage increase. All 3 things that Kama wants, especially if you're trying to finish a fight relatively quick. 3 Anglers is another great event CE to use if you don't need the starting MP charge. This will give you 15% quick performance increase, 15% MP damage increase, and 15% critical damage increase, a slightly stronger CE at the cost of the starting MP. The next suggestion I have is a CE that comes out with Kama's event, the Princess's Pilgrimage, featuring everyone's favorite princesses, Astolfo and Chevalier d'Eon. This CE releases with Kama's event, like I said before, but it is a 5-star Gacha CE. You have to pull for it, and it is the rarest CE that you can find of the event CEs. So it will be hard to max limit break. It will give you a 10, 15% at max limit broken quick performance increase, a 10 or 15% at max limit break critical damage increase, and a 40 or 50% max limit broken starting MP charge. All things that Kama likes. And finally, Old Faithful if you just want your MP to hit really hard and try and loop that MP back to back to back, is of course the Black Grail. This gives a 60 or 80% at max limit broken NP damage increase at the cost of a measly 500 health per turn. Seeing as Kama has an upwards of 4,000 health heal, this health loss might as well not exist at all. Now, servants to pair her with. We have, oh look, it's Waver again. He provides 50% MP charge, crit damage up, defense up, and attack up. It's hard to pass on him, so of course he's always here. Moving on, we have Scotty, the absolute best servant to pair Kama with. Scotty has a 50% quick up with a 100% quick crit damage increase that lasts for 3 turns, a 30% defense down on all enemies, and a 50% ally MP charge, all able to help Kama do as much damage as possible, loop her MP as much as possible, and be as strong as possible. Next, I would suggest Wu Zetian, as she brings a 20% damage and 20% quick up for all allies, a 30% defense down on enemies, and Wu herself has a pretty good MP that can remove enemy buffs, deal some pretty respectable damage to them to help supplement Kama's clear. And finally, I will suggest a 3-star Alexander as a support. This is our budget support. He brings a charisma buff for up to a 16% attack increase, a 3-turn 20% quick increase, and eventually his second skill will get a strengthening to remove enemy buffs. Again, very helpful to remove those enemy buffs. And you may notice there's another face down here below Alexander. This is Castor Artoria. She is going to become a permanent fixation on our list from now on. And the reason is because much like Waver, she offers so much that is so good that she is good with literally every servant in the game. She has a 20% attack up and 30% MP charge for all allies on one skill, a 20% targeted MP charge gain for one ally with a 30% MP rate up for all allies, and a 50% arts up with 1-turn invincibility for one ally, while her MP will give a 30 to 50% attack up, debuff removal, and unremovable invincibility for all allies. She's honestly unpierceable, I should say, invincibility. It is removable. My bad, misspoke. She is absolutely too good to ignore. She is an arts-focused servant that is so good you can pair her with a quick or a buster and get incredibly good mileage out of her. So too long didn't watch here. Roll for Kama. She's incredibly good. Her stats are good. Her damage is high. She can loop her MP, and she's amazing for challenge fights. She is easily the best assassin in the game. And best of all, she is the only servant in the game who is fully advantageous against alter egos, albeit for only 3 turns. She has no true downside that I can actually think of other than her charm not being a guarantee, so it can sometimes mess your plan up if you try to rely on it. If you need any other reason to roll than all the many things I've pointed out already, then I've got a great one for you. Kama comes in 3 delicious different flavors for you to choose from, between mean-spirited lolly, foul-mouthed teenager, and sadistic demon queen MILF. She fits everyone's fetishes, so why wouldn't you want to roll for her? And if you enjoyed this video, check out my Twitch channel to see it live. Thanks for watching, guys, and of course, good luck on your rolls, everyone. I hope Kama will treat you nicely.